We're here with Governor Gary Johnson of New Mexico, the Libertarian nominee for president, Judge Jim Gray of California, the Libertarian Party nominee for vice president, and Steve Collett, a CPA from California, the Libertarian candidate for Congress in the 33rd District of California, who is treasurer for California's Regulate Marijuana Like Wine initiative. Thank you all for joining us, and congratulations.
Thank you.
First, we're going to start with the issue of marriage. Today, Joe Biden, Vice President, on Meet the Press today, said he was comfortable with gay marriage but couldn't speak to Obama's position, which at this point is evolving. The White House staff later clarified that this was not an endorsement of gay marriage. Governor Johnson, do you support marriage equality?
I do. Now, marriage equality can't wait. We can't wait on this issue. Freedom can't wait.
Thank you. My friends in D.C. are going to like that. Judge Gray, speaking of can't wait, you said this weekend that you can't wait to get on stage and debate Vice President Biden. How would you respond to the Vice President's answer on marriage equality, or rather, the freedom to marry?
I crave the opportunity to discuss issues with Mr. Biden and whomever Romney selects. And I can tell you that I really don't play politics, and I don't wait. I won't have any trouble at all discussing what Governor Johnson's views are on things. You just heard him. This isn't Obama. Obama, who knows? Who knows about Romney? But we do know about Governor Johnson. I'm proud to be his running mate.
Thank you. And Steve, what will you as a member of Congress do for marriage equality?
Well, for starters, we need to repeal the Defense of Marriage Act, and we need to do it now.
Bravo!
And I will fight as a congressman to make that repeal happen.
Let me just add that society wants commitment. And what's the matter with two people, be it gay, lesbian, or otherwise, committing to each other as adults? They're going to live together anyway. Let's get that commitment. Society favors it. It's a matter of equality, and that's what we stand for.
And Steve, how do the Libertarians set themselves apart from the Democrats and Republicans on this?
Well, we're willing to come out and say right off the top that we support LGBT rights, and we support equality for everyone to marry who they want to marry.
And after all, they did have a supermajority and didn't make it happen, did they? I think with one Libertarian in Congress, we'll probably do more than they did with a supermajority.
It wouldn't be hard.
On the issue of money, in D.C. where I live, we do not have votes in the House and Senate. However, we do pay federal income taxes. So we have the worst of both worlds, federal taxation without the representation. And as a member of Congress, you, Steve Collett, will have the final authority when it comes to how D.C. manages its budget and makes its laws. How would you address the unfairness of taxation without representation?
I have spent a career as a CPA, 35 years, fighting for taxpayer rights. And I will fight for the rights of people in D.C. to not pay any tax because they're not represented. Until they are represented, they should not pay any tax.
I'm advocating throwing out the entire federal tax system and replacing it with one federal consumption tax. But hey, Washington, D.C., if there's taxation, there better darn well be representation.
I'm here to tell you that taxation with representation isn't all that wonderful either.
Well, and Judge Gray, how can the Libertarians set themselves apart here on this issue?
Well, you know, people speak the truth with the Libertarians. We don't play politics, and people know where we stand on this issue, on taxation, on marriage equality. That's who we are, and the more people realize what Libertarians stand for, freedom, social tolerance, they will come, they will flock to this campaign.
Fiscal responsibility. What about the notion of doing away with all federal taxes? Income tax, corporate tax, the IRS, and replacing it with a consumption tax that at a very minimum is fair, and it's a whole lot less complicated.
Absolutely.
Do you know, you're from D.C. You know who the strongest lobby against doing away with the IRS is? It's members of Congress. They know how much power they would lose because they couldn't, in effect, sell special tax breaks for their constituents. Let's do away with that unfairness.
If we abolish the income tax and the corporate tax, I'm going to pose to you that 50% of the lobbyists in Washington will become unemployed. Pink slips for Washington lobbyists. Adopt the fair tax.
And all those skills, what could we do with those?
I don't know.
We can find some shovel-ready projects for them.
Great.
As an accountant, I can say we'll find plenty of work doing productive things for society.
Wonderful. Now to marijuana. You all have gotten a lot of attention for this, Stephen Colbert, others. I've traveled the country a lot in DC, Virginia, Appalachia, the Mountain West, all of these places, very pro-legalization or decriminalization. Each of you has been vocal about regulating and controlling marijuana and your support for it. In some states we have medical marijuana and decriminalization, and others we have possession or distribution that's punishable with jail time. Judge Gray, can you give us a progress report on the Obama administration's handling of this issue?
What a disappointment. In fact, what hypocrisy. Before his election, I read Mr. Obama's 2 books, and he commented in print that he had, when as a social organizer in Chicago, used cocaine, used marijuana regularly. Then, when on the campaign trail, he said, well, did you inhale? You know, the old Clinton joke. And he said, I thought it was the whole idea. How refreshing, how wonderful. Now he is in office, and what happens? He actually instructs his Attorney General to give that memo saying, as long as people in medical marijuana dispensaries are not in violation of state law, we're going to leave them alone. And then his own head of the DEA, in her confirmation hearing, says, oh, I'm not going to follow that. And now look what Obama is doing, actually attacking medical marijuana dispensaries that are working hard, hand in glove with local officials, doing it right, and now they're under attack from the Obama administration. I say, shame on him.
When I was asked the same Clinton question about did I inhale, my response was I never exhaled. And I'm not trying to be flippant here about a very serious issue, and that very serious issue is the fact that 100 million Americans have smoked marijuana. I'm one of that group. Given the wrong set of circumstances, I'm behind bars. Well, guess what? We got 2.3 million people behind bars in this country, the largest category of those behind bars being there on drug-related offenses. This war on drugs needs to stop. And let's start with legalizing marijuana. Control it, regulate it, tax it.
Well, and if President Obama had been a young person living in Anacostia in DC and got caught, his future would be quite different.
George W. Bush, pretty much. Clinton, pretty much. You know, what's this going to do? A pretty good swimmer named Michael Phelps, too. And you know something? The only harmful thing to him about marijuana was being caught. It's a shame. The most harmful thing about marijuana, which I have never used, honestly, is jail. It isn't working. So hold adults accountable for what they put into their bodies doesn't work. What you do is hold adults accountable for their actions, but not what they put into their bodies. That makes perfect sense.
In California, we have over 70,000 arrests every year for marijuana. It's just a travesty. It's unjust. It's largely discriminatory, and it costs the state an unbelievable amount of money. There's a bill in Congress, H.R. 2306. It's co-sponsored by Barney Frank and Ron Paul, and it's a bill to end marijuana criminalization at the federal level. Let each state decide what they're going to do with respect to marijuana. They could prohibit it. They could allow it for medical marijuana. They could legalize it completely, or any of a wide range of possibilities in between. And that's sitting, rotting in a committee that the ranking member is Henry Waxman, who's the incumbent congressman in my district. There's another bill in that same committee, which is there's a bill for medical marijuana, and there's a bill for hemp, also in the committee, and it's dying in Henry Waxman's committee. We have an opportunity to allow each state to decide its own laws, become one of 50 laboratories of innovation to decide what works with marijuana. We incarcerate at 5 times the rate of most every other industrialized country in the world. How can we afford to do that and compete with other cultures when we're spending that amount of money incarcerating our people for doing something to their own body?
If I were living in California, I would vote for Steve Collett.
Well, you speak of
there's only one choice.
You speak of incarceration, and in the Senate we have a bill that's been filibustered. And can you speak to that bill?
Well, there's a few heroes in the Senate, but there's one hero in particular, Senator Jim Webb, who has stood out fighting for a change in our criminal laws, and he has been outspoken for a long period of time. I support his bill to try to change our criminal laws.
Great.
What's the largest cash crop in the state of California today? It's marijuana. You know, I sentenced several people for being under the influence of methamphetamines when I was still on the bench. And they told me at time of sentencing, you know, Your Honor, my drug of choice is marijuana. I bought it from the same person regularly. One day, unbeknownst to me, they sold me some marijuana laced with methamphetamines, and I got myself hooked. I think to myself, you know, that's an issue we can and should address. I don't believe in smoking. I think it's very harmful for the users, but at least when you go to your local mini-mart and buy a pack of Marlboros, you're going to know it's not laced with methamphetamines. These are harms we are inflicting upon ourselves because of this marijuana prohibition. And by the way, don't listen to us so much. The Office of the Attorney General said that if we were to regulate marijuana like wine, we could save tens of millions of dollars every year in California alone and, listen to this, generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue that honestly now are going to whom? Mexican drug cartels and pretty much every juvenile gang in the state. What's the matter with us? Let's regulate marijuana like wine. Let's vote for Steve Collett for Congress. By the way, let's vote for Governor Gary Johnson for president. And I'm there too.